Thank you so much, Marilyn, for joining us on this show, The Ex-Monks Drive.
Okay, Ex-Monks Drive.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. You know the role you have played in my life. I owe my coaching career to you, Marilyn. So it's a sheer pleasure and honor for me to have you here.
I appreciate that, Gaurav. I've been appreciating you for many years with your humor and your aim for wisdom, your big aim for wisdom.
Thank you. And you have played a very vital role in this endeavor for me.
I'm appreciating that. Thank you.
And Marilyn, I've always known you as a storyteller. So tell me a story that has inspired you the most as a child.
Oh, that's a very interesting question, to think back to childhood stories. But immediately when I read your question, one story came right to mind. It was one that I loved when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. And it was one of the first storybooks I could read. It had the story of the little red hen who, with all the farm animals, got together one day. And the farm animals thought it might be a good idea if they created a birthday gift for the farmer. And they just chatted about it. The cow said, "Oh, it's a great idea. I could give milk." And the little red hen said, "Well, I could give eggs." And the honeybees said, "Oh, we can give honey." And on it went. The apple tree said, "Hey, I've got lots of apples. We can make an apple cake." So they were busy talking about it. What if we did this? But a couple of days later, it was actually the time to do it. And the little red hen went around, and everyone was far too busy to actually make the cake. It was one thing to talk about the cake, but making it required commitment. And no, everybody was too relaxed, enjoying what they were doing, to commit themselves to something new. And the little red hen was quite discouraged. She said, "Won't you help me make the cake? Won't you help me?" And they said, "Oh, maybe if I finish enjoying myself this way or that way." And she came back, "No, I'll come, later." But it was time to make the cake. So she looked at all the farm animals and she scolded them. She said, "Well, if you guys don't do it, I'll do it. I'll do it. Just give me your ingredients. You can just sit there. I'll make the cake." And then she did. She went about making the cake all by herself. She said, "I can do it by myself." And she did. So that was a story I loved. And I actually thought about it later. Yes, it did inspire me. It inspired me a lot. Willing to take action. She was willing to be 100% committed and actually do it.
And I think, Marilyn, that's what you stand for, because for all these years I've known you, once you commit to something, you just go for that. And that's one of the conversations I would love to indulge in with you, because I would love to understand what actually gives you so much of drive, what keeps the fire burning inside. But before that, my question to you is, how did you get this inspiration to get into personal transformation and coaching?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's been driving me all my life. And at different stages. There wasn't one thing here. I had great teachers when I was young. I loved the work of Alan Watts. I loved Bertrand Russell. I loved poets like Walt Whitman. These were people who were really, really alive and committed. And I read the poetry, Wilfred Owen. These were incredible poets, and I was inspired by their commitment to life. Alan Watts was genuinely my teacher. I got to work with him. What a lucky person I was.
Hmm.
And he was so committed and so visionary. So between them all, I modeled them. You know, I said, this is a life worth living. This is the way I want to be in the world.
And that is what I guess you stand for today. You are inspiring so many people all across the world. And at least I would know of 1,000 people who you have inspired. At least I am one of them. As I mentioned to you, if not for you, I would not have been where I am. And I wish somebody is going to ask me the same question: who inspired me to get into this space after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? And I will tell the way you are talking about Alan Watts, I'll tell you Dr. Marilyn Atkinson.
Ah.
So Marilyn, the Marilyn that I know is a visionary. She's a hustler and someone who can work relentlessly for hours and hours together. When people half of your age say, I'm tired, get up, pick up a new challenge, give them a new challenge as well. You are an author of 7 books. You go for treks regularly. You hold a very balanced life. You take care of your family. You take care of your husband. Lawrence is one of my favorite men in the world. So how do you manage to do that? So I'm very curious, where do you get so much of energy?
Okay, well, that's a very, very useful question for me. Well, I think, first of all, I love people. I love humanity. And in my mind's eye, I see people developing themselves with the solution-focused work. This work is so intuitive and so natural for our mind and our heart. So coaching works well. And so I imagine a whole world of people who are happy. Now, I also use for myself a system I call the happiness success model. We teach it in our modules course, in module 4. It's a wonderful system. It works very well. And that it's a 4-quadrant view of energy and happiness. If you were to think of 4 quadrants here, the top quadrant has to do with meaning. What's really meaningful for you? Left quadrant has to do with relationship. How do you develop yourself relationally? The right quadrant has to do with creativity and your focus on the future and planning and making things happen. And the bottom quadrant has to do with physicality. Now, the discovery about happiness, and this was started once by the Harvard Business Review, they did a study of happiness, and they found that people who were truly happy weren't just happy in one of these quadrants. They weren't just successful in this area or this area. And they weren't just successful in 3. In fact, every day they made time for all 4. And even if they were deeply into some creative moment, when it was time to go to physicality, they would. When it was time to take care of relationships, they would. And so in all of these quadrants, they would do something every day. Now, for me, that's been a really interesting challenge. Because the top quadrant is really about long-term value. What's your legacy in life? What do you really want to give forward? It once used to be our children. You know, we were giving forward our children. But now, with the world in such desperate shape, and it is in desperate shape, with 7 billion of us, the planet is groaning and it's really being destroyed fast. We're destroying the soil, we're destroying the air, we're destroying the water. And we're not creating a space for our children. So now my attention is on legacy that has to do with making a difference to people's determination, vision, and commitment to see the planet as their mother. Take care of this mother that we have, and genuinely give back. So every day I spend a little time with each quadrant.
No, I guess that's what I think, Marilyn, that's what you are living on day-to-day basis. So whether it's, as I mentioned, that looking for something, and I've always known you as somebody who's always spoken about legacy. Always. It's not that it's only today. It's like for as long as I've known you, for almost like 10, 12 years now. I've always known you. I've always seen you talking about legacy. I've always seen you talking about valuing people, making sure that you know where you are heading towards, taking care of your physical health as well. And I think the way you explain that in the 4 quadrant, it makes a lot of sense, because unless we have got the balance of all 4 and the harmony with each other, we will not be able to bring that equanimity, will not be able to bring that balance in life.
Exactly.
Thank you. And
now, I want to say a bit more about it, though, because see, the relationship area doesn't have to be a huge area every day, but we need to actually see people and create some shining moments with them. Shining moments of just touching them in a real way, and then that relationship area grows. And the creativity moment needs to be something where we're curious. It needs to be following our curiosity and making it real, so that that area grows. And between them all, even if we're not strong in one of these areas, if we put attention on 3, then the 4th one develops. So the hard one, of course, is legacy, because it's long term. We have to envision the people coming after us and see them as much as real as we see those people in front of us. See that that child of the future wants to live on planet Earth and love their life as much as we do. So it's genuinely a meditation, a daily meditation.
It is. It is. Thank you, Marilyn, for sharing that. Marilyn, in an industry where people find it extremely difficult to grow their practice in their own country, you've been able to expand it in over 85 countries. We've been able to expand the kind of work that you are involved in over 132 countries. People from 132 countries have attended your program. They would have read your books, or they would have seen some of the other video of yours. What do you think? Which one trait of yours has supported you to make this happen?
Oh, there's a question. I think it's the ability to visualize. With visualization, it's easy to change. Every morning when I wake up, for the last 30 years, I spend about 10 to 30 seconds. That's not very long, just visualizing my day. And I see myself accomplishing the hard part that day. What is the thing that's hardest for me to do? What do I need to put my attention on? And so I make it much easier that way, because when I see myself doing it, I build the mind linkages, and then it becomes easy. Every time you visualize yourself doing something, you've already built the linkage in the brain. So you're moving past resistance. And when the time comes to do that difficult thing, you just do it. So that's the first thing. It allows me to genuinely move into difficult things.
Okay, so your ability to visualize, because it helps you to move past the difficult part of the day, or move past any of the difficult projects as well.
Well, the important thing is how you visualize, Gaurav. It needs to be dissociated visualization, where you see yourself in action. That's a full-bodied image. You see yourself actually doing it, and you say yes to that. And you do it a couple of times. It's very easy to move into that area, especially if you visualize yourself about 3 times. Now, the second part is saying yes to it. That means internally you're solution focused. Yes, I will. yes, this is worth it.
Hmm.
Yes, I'll do it.
Yes. So, Marilyn, also help me understand. One is visualization, right? And I'm with you on that because uh, I believe in that. I practice that. Now, at the same time, I'm sure when you're expanding your services, when you're expanding your company to 85 countries, I'm sure you would have come across several different kinds of people. You would have interacted with different cultures as well. And in this journey, many people, they would have done something that you would not have expected from them.
Okay.
Right? So, in this journey, how did you manage to take care of your own insecurities, if there were any, the fears or any cultural differences? So, if you can just share one of those examples.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in cultures. I'm interested in how people think, but I study people in terms of typologies. I work with what's called the Enneagram. And from the Enneagram, I've built and studied what we call metaprograms, or cultural habits, internal habits, and with that, spiral dynamics, how different cultures are at different phases of development in terms of self-knowledge. Every culture has its own self-knowledge knots or issues. And people have gone through cultural, call it lockdown in some respects, where we say, oh, I can't really be myself. I need to just do what I've been taught, or I need to fight to survive, or whatever the cultural knot is. Now, with the Enneagram, I look at about 9 different kinds of knots that people get into. And I see those as different meta programs that have to do with negative emotions. For example, in the lower parts of the Enneagram, we have different habits around fight, flight, or freeze, which are deep, old mammal habits. How do we protect ourselves? So I've got a way of studying people easily. And then I speak to how that knot opens. Because every one of those knots can be just opened. It needs to be opened carefully. And it needs to be opened particularly. But as I look at people, I'm not saying, oh, this person is out to get me, even if they are. I'm looking at how that person can open and move beyond that. So this is, I think, with my own sort of, I've got an intellectual style. I'm doing much more with my thinking, often with my heart. My heart opening up is the big one. But just doing it intellectually allows me to dissociate from my beliefs about people and be curious about them and interested in them. And then my heart can open up.
Thank you, Marilyn. And Marilyn, I've always been fascinated with the World Game project that you lead. So tell me more about the project.
Well, the World Game came to me a variety of ways. First of all, we were working a lot with games in the teen course. Paul Gosson, my son, really had developed some great teen games. And I was thinking, well, gee, games are valuable ways for people to move past their blocks. And the second thing was the idea of the tipping point. We've made some discoveries in the last 100 years that when a culture changes, generally it's about 3% of the people that create that cultural change. So for example, as we look at the spiral of human development, when 3% of the population take on a new style, guess what? The style moves through the whole culture.
Yeah.
Everybody starts to move towards that.
It elevates the complete humanity.
Yeah. Now, it's one thing to do this technologically. That takes about 10%. But when leaders really represent that 3%, when they have the courage and the commitment, when they show it in their behavior, so they not only assist people to visualize it, they show consistency, they show action steps, and people say that person is being truthful. I can trust them. then it starts to unfold.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Marilyn. And Marilyn, now this phase, what we call as the rapid question answer round. So I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and
Okay.
you have to give me an answer in just one breath without thinking, either in a word or at the max in a sentence.
Okay.
All right, and here we go. Your favorite place for vacation in the world?
Actually, climbing a mountain anywhere.
Okay, thank you. One regret of your life?
One regret of my life. That I didn't know much more about relationship when I was very young in my first marriage.
One person you are most grateful to?
Great deal of gratitude to a man named Duncan Blewett, a visionary psychologist who really took me under his wing and said, Marilyn, you've got a lot of talent. You got to use it. And he pointed me in the direction of really taking my self-development to the next level.
Thank you, Marilyn. This reminds me of my initial conversation with you. And I remember the way you kept your right hand on my left shoulder and you said, Gaurav, I promise you, one day you'll be one of the finest coaches in the country. And that gave me so much of confidence, so much of trust and faith on humanity and on myself that I can do it. And that kept me, keep my focus, keep my commitment, keep my consistency alive. Yeah.
Wow.
Your role model?
Oh, my role model. Wow, I've got so many of them at different stages. I'm always finding role models, so there's no one role model.
A culture you love the most?
Oh, every culture. I love humanity, Gaurav. I love human beings. I haven't been to a culture I didn't like. I genuinely find the most amazing people everywhere I go. And that's truthful. People say, oh, there must be, one preferred place. But I'm always so surprised at the integrity human beings have, at the heartfelt desire to live and learn and grow that everybody at any age has.
Your favorite book?
My favorite book? Walt Whitman's Song of Myself.
Song of Myself. Your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby is reading.
Your favorite author?
Let's see. Gee, that's a hard one. It depends on my mood of the day. But I really loved a book recently called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I really appreciated that. I love a lot of the spiritual work, and I love books about great spiritual teachers. So that one comes to mind.
Yeah. Your favorite quote?
Quote, whatever you put your attention on, you get more of.
Thank you. And what do you say to somebody you love?
I love you.
I love you too. So thank you so much for clearing all the questions, the 10 questions of the rapid question answer round. Thank you so much, Marilyn. So, Marilyn, help me understand. Let's say, what do you wish you had known when you started out?
Well, I wish I had known how easy it was to change. See, most people hit their emotional bypass system as soon as they start to look at what they want. And immediately up comes the rejection of that. It won't work, it didn't work before, it hasn't worked for these people. All sorts of thoughts are sort of pulled out of the garbage and just spin the mind. So they pause. But if you actually visualize yourself changing, if you go past the words into the vision and see yourself doing what you want to do and see yourself enjoying it, then you move right past this. See, I studied many psychological fields when I was younger. I studied about 6 major systems of psychology, and almost all of them had some sort of framework where the idea was it takes quite a long time. You know, you have to practice and you have to do this. And of course, that makes psychologists rich because people have trouble and they come back again and again. When I was young, it was psychotherapy, and that could take 20 years if you were lucky. And people never had the idea of breakthrough. In fact, it takes about 3 weeks to change this whole system of networks. You can really build new networks fast. And you can do profound work with the value-based self-image, building those networks. And breakthroughs happen when you look for them, when you expect them, when you say yes to them. What you put your attention on, you get more of. And so the ingredients I've found are a coaching style of thinking. Now you need to build that. Operating with inner questions, asking yourself as well as other people, being curious about your own curiosity. What will develop it? What is underneath this thought system? And then it starts to immediately work. You need to be curious about breakthroughs. What would allow you to have a breakthrough? That's the important thing. It's not waiting, you know, someday my dream will come, or even worse than that, other people get breakthroughs, but I never do. It's expecting a breakthrough, asking for a breakthrough, inviting a breakthrough, loving the process of having a breakthrough.
Yeah. So, Marilyn, help me understand. Let's say, you know, with all the wisdom that you have been able to accumulate for yourself. So, from your journey being a psychotherapist to now being one of the well-known coach in the world, if with all the wisdom that you have right now, if you were to give one single piece of advice to your 21-year-old young self, what would that be?
I think it would be self-trust. You know, right now at Erickson, we're creating quite a few programs. One of them is called the ADEPT program. The ADEPT program is a group of spiritual programs, including what we call expanding emotional intelligence, the art and science of mindfulness, the light of the Enneagram, and advance of the spirit, or the deep coaching program. It's also this new program on emotions. It's also the program on inner beauty. There's a variety of programs that are part of this. So at the top of the quadrant goes with the word advance. So we're advancing certain thought systems in the world. The left side is about expanding beyond negatives, expanding through the gate of the mind into the freedom territory. The right system is about design. So we're touching the place in ourselves where we can really become our own spiritual coach, where we can design a competency model. So we've built a competency model. And then, of course, the bottom quadrant is about perception, perceiving all the distinctions of a mindful life, perceiving inner beauty, perceiving ourself, genuinely enjoying the life day by day. And all of these together build inner trust. The center of this is inner trust.
Thank you. And Marilyn, if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, there we go. Who would it be and why? Well, again, let's go around the 4 quadrants, because it's different with the different quadrants. Top quadrant, Ramana Maharshi. Whoa. I don't know if he'd eat dinner with me, but I would sure love to see him. A great one is Mahatma Gandhi for his commitment. These are all Indians. How about that?
Yeah.
Now, on the relational side, again, I look at the great Buddhist Tibetan masters, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I mentioned that one. I'd ask the Dalai Lama to choose the dinner guests because he really studied compassion all his life.
Yeah.
And compassion is the heart of that. Bottom quadrant, physicality. I wouldn't go to eat. I'd go dancing. Why go eat? I'd go to do some rock and roll. I'd go. We do some different kinds of dancing. Lawrence and I go Strauss waltzing or something silly.
And I've seen you dancing. I've seen you both dancing together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we love to dance. We've turned our kitchen now into a dance parlor because that's the only place we can dance these days.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the Creative Commons, the area where we're looking at the future, I have a hero there. Now, he's a man who has a great vision for how we can actually go through this difficult time of ecological change, where we have to take care of our planet quickly in the next 10 years, or we'll move past the heat zone and there'll be a tipping point that makes the earth become unlivable. So our children won't have a world. I mean, after about even 10 years, the oceans start to become unusable. The air becomes unbreathable. Everything is becoming, reaching that tipping point. So his vision, his name is Jeremy Rifkin. His newest book is on the Green New Deal. He's aiming it at the American market, but he's showing how we can do it with solar, everybody using solar, using spirulina in our homes to create food, but using also spirulina to rebuild the earth with fertilizers, to create cisterns for water, to regroup around all the new technologies. So it's not just solar, it's electric cars and scooters. And we can do it in a short period of time if everyone says yes. We also have to have fewer children. The earth is burdened by the number of children we have. And I say, if people can have one child now for the next 100 years, it's a sacrifice, but it actually is saying yes to Mother Earth. The Western cultures are using it all. We need 4 Earths for everybody to join the technological and food production possibilities that Western cultures have.
Yeah.
That's not very much. And so there's 7 billion of us. How do we create an Earth where all of us can actually live? And that's what Jeremy Rifkin is all about. So I think there's compassion study with the heart, but there's compassion action, and we need to take it. We need to say yes to it, to our planet and our mother, and to each other having a future. And to that child who might be our grandchild, who also wants to live on Earth and love the birds and butterflies and have animals here. Because the animals are going through a great extinction right now.
Yes, they are.
Be wise now.
That's a profound, very, very profound thought, Marilyn. And that's making me reflect right now. How can I make this world a little better place to live in for the generations to come in the future? So, Marilyn, which is that one project that you would like to be known for in years and decades to come?
Well, the one I took on is bringing a coaching style of thinking into the world. The project I'd love to see is that coaches take on really coaching entrepreneurs and leaders, especially social entrepreneurs, who are focused on the future, on making the world work. And that we coach people who then become known as natural, compassionate, truthful leaders, not out for themselves, but out for all of us. And that we begin to think as one humanity. The word hue is very interesting. The hue in humanity means God. It's the ancient word for God. So human means God-man.
God-man.
Yeah. So it's the heart of a lot of words in the English language. For example, humility, humanity. It's also hubris. Yeah, hubris. Yeah. That means we go beyond our capacity to be human.
Yes.
And humor.
See,
humor really gets it. So we need to have more hue in our life, except for the hubris part. Because in fact, if we take on hue, we take on all of us. And that means we start to think in a very different way. We start to think about the world's children and the children beyond that. Because human beings are the ones coming after us, besides just our families.
Thank you, Marilyn. And Marilyn, today when you reflect at your life, what do you know for sure with 100% certainty and surety?
What do I know for sure?
Yeah.
That love works. That's a good one.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Self-trust works. That when you build inner systems, talk to yourself and ask yourself the important questions, when you're mindful and curious, when you aim for deeper meaning, self-trust works. And self-trust leads immediately to love, because we can let love look out of our eyes and see the world. And we're connecting then inner and outer.
Thank you with this beautiful message that love works, self-trust works. When you're mindful and curious, when you're aiming for something bigger and beyond than you, love works. And then the complete world, the entire universe comes together to make it happen. And, it would really unfair at my part not to share the one thing that I often quote that I've learned from you is that when you're open and willing to explore, the magic happens.
Ah, yes.
And this is what I've learned from you. So, Marilyn, if you can just share one of your favorite stories to end this conversation with, that would be a gift to me and to all the listeners.
One of my favorite stories is the story of the man who had a big fish tank. And it was an oceanarium fish tank that he had along the wall of his living room. And it was his pride and joy, because in it he had a small shark. And this shark swam up and down in the saltwater brine he created for his fish tank. And he had that shark for 7 years. And then he got a job on the other side of North America. And he didn't know what to do with his shark. And finally he decided to give it to the ocean world, this huge oceanarium with 7 levels of ocean water, 7 stories, and very wide, half a football field. And people would come every day and they'd watch the sharks and all the other ocean creatures swimming in this giant fish tank. And his fish was put in the water, and the gentleman left to the other side of North America. Now, 7 years later, he came back, and he was at the oceanarium looking for his shark. And he looked, and there was giant sharks swimming by 2 meters wide, and 2.5 meters, some of them. So as he looked at these huge sharks, long and vicious looking, he thought, well, my shark has this white marking on its tail. Let me see if I can find it. Didn't find it. He was looking for a little guy. And then a big shark, one of those 3-meter sharks, came by with the white markings on the tail. Aha, here's my shark. Now, for 7 years, he'd had a little shark in a little fish tank. 2 years later, he was back at Oceanarium, 2.5, 3 years later, and it was a huge shark. So he realized the key thing was the size of the tank. Now that has to do with our mind. See, I want to ask you, how big is your tank? How big do you allow your mind to grow? How big do you ask your mind to envision? How far out into the future do you go? How deep into your values and vision do you go? How open is your heart? How much do you fill that tank? And that is the key. Ask yourself in the morning, everybody, how big is my tank? And grow your tank as big as you can. Envision yourself accomplishing what would take all of your energy and focus and love and commitment. See yourself doing the hard part. See yourself doing the part that gives you joy. And the next day again.
Beautiful, Marilyn. How big is my tank? And that's a thought that I'm going to reflect with. Thank you. It was such a pleasure having you on this show, The Ex-Monk's Drive. And look forward to interact with you again. Thank you.
You are welcome, Gaurav. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.